This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, I'm going to have Shabbos Rabbi as we prepare for Parshas Va'era. The Haftorah Parshas Va'era is from the Navi Yocheved. Kayamar Hashem is from the Kapitlach in Yocheved Chavtes. And the connection to the Haftorah, as brought in the Sefer Chazayin David, is that the Haftarah begins, Kayamar Hashem Elokim B'kivtzi es Beis Yisrael min ha'amim. So says Hashem, when I gather Klal Yisrael from the nations, which is similar to what it says in the Parsha, V'hoitzeisi eschem mitachas sivlois Mitzrayim. Also, the Haftarah speaks about the prophecy about Paroi and his punishment, similar to the Makos against Mitzrayim. So we're going to examine one particular phrase in the Haftarah, Ben Adam. We had a shiur recently about why the Navi Yocheved is called Ben Adam. What Parsha was that shiur? Who remembers? What Parsha? Vayigash, right? Vayigash. Why is Yocheved called Ben Adam? Ben Adam sim panecha al paroi melech Mitzrayim v'hinavei alav v'al Mitzrayim kulah. Son of man, right? Yocheved is the Gilgal of Cain. Place your face on Paroi, king of Egypt, prophecy on him, and on Egypt, her entirety. And the Chida, in his commentary to the Haftarah, Tzavare Shala, wants to know, why is Mitzrayim being referred to in Lashon Nekeva, Kula? Why Lashon Nekeva? Since when is Mitzrayim a woman? Okay, that's the question of the Chida. Also, we could sort of continue along this way of thinking. We know that Paroi specifically was interested in the Nashim. First of all, we could go back in time to the first time we encountered Paroi, and that's when Abraham went down to Mitzrayim. What did Paroi do? He took Sarah. So, right off the bat, Paroi is interested in Sarah. And then in last week's Parsha, Vayomer b'yaladchen es ha'ivrios, when the Jewish midwives help the women give birth, Re'isen alav naim, you look on the birthing stool, Im beinhu v'hamiten oisai. If it's a child, if it's a son, you will kill it. V'im v'chaya. But if it's a girl, let her live. So Paro seems to be very interested in the bas, in the nashim. Interesting and amazingly, in Sefer Yeshaya, Perek Yotes, Pasuk Tezayin, the Pasuk says that what will happen to Egypt in the future? Bayoim ahu yeh Mitzrayim kanoshim. On that day, Egypt will be like women. So there's this unusual connection between Mitzrayim is being referred to as Lashon Nekeva. Paroi is interested in the boys, you got to kill them. The girls, v'chaya, you have to keep them alive. And the fate of Egypt is they will be like Nashim. Mar Rabbi say, let's talk about Yaakov Avinu going down to Mitzrayim. How many Jews came down to Mitzrayim?
70.
How many Jews came down to Mitzrayim? 66. 66 Jews came down to Mitzrayim. How many Jews total were in Mitzrayim? 70. The Gemara, 70. So who were they? Yosef, his two sons, and we're missing one. Who is the mysterious 70th soul of Yaakov Avinu? So the Gemara says in Soita, it says, Vayelech ish mi beis Levi, vayikach es bas Levi. What does bas sound like? She's young. Oh, yeah, I married a really young girl. You wouldn't believe. Mazel tov, I'm a chassid. Who'd you marry? A very young girl. How old is she? 10? No, she's 130. Rabbi Yocheved is called a bas. With young nashim like that, imagine how old the old ones are. The Gemara says this: Bas efshar bas meo shloishim shana v'yav kari lebas. Damar Rami bar Chama, Damar Rav Chama bar Chanina zu Yocheved shehayrasa b'darach. She was conceived on the road. V'leidasa bein hachoymai. She was born between the walls. Shenemar asher yolda oisa lelevi b'Mitzrayim. Leidasa b'Mitzrayim. She was born in Egypt. Ve'ein hayrasa b'Mitzrayim. This girl who was 130 years old, how do we know she was 130? How do we know she was 130? Because we make a cheshbon that now at this time she must have been 130 because she was conceived when they came down to Mitzrayim, and now because Moshe was 80 when they stood before Paro, and they were in Mitzrayim 210 years, and Yocheved was born bein hachoimos. So Gemara says she became young again. Shenoldu bas simani naros. She became young again. We have this interesting thing that Yocheved was born bein hachoimos, between the walls. Why did she have to be born like not in Egypt, not out of Egypt, like in between the walls? The Gemara in Bava Basra also discusses this. Boi mine Abba Khalifa Kruya me Reb Chia bar Abba. Abba Khalifa Kruya asked him Reb Chia bar Abba, B'chlala nat ha'moitzi shivan. When you incorporate everyone, they're 70. B'fratan, when you enumerate them specifically, at ha'moitzi shivim, you find 70. Chasar echad, -1. Meaning, when you incorporate everyone, b'chlalan, they're 70, but if you count them, they're 69. So Amar Lei, he said back, no, Tuma Isam Dina. Dina had a twin. T'chsev ve'es Dina bitai. Ve'es, Dina had a twin. Elamayata Tuma Isam Binyamin. Binyamin had a twin. T'chsev ve'es Binyamin Achiv Ben Imai. He said, no, Amar. Margolas Tova Hoysa Biyadi, I had a gem here. V'at Mavakish Abdaman, you want me to lose it? Hachi Amar Rab Chama Bar Chanina. Zu Yocheved, the 70th one is Yocheved. Shahirasa B'darach, she was born on the road. V'leidasa bein hachaymos, and she was conceived on the road. She was born between the walls. Shenamar asher yolda oisa lelevi b'Mitzrayim, leidasa b'Mitzrayim, ein hayrasa b'Mitzrayim. By the way, Rabbi say, number one, why did Yocheved have to be born exactly at that time? Number two, did you know? Do we count, by the way, Leah in the 70? No. Why? Because she's a woman. Do we count Bilhah? No. Why not? She's a woman. Zilpah? No. The women are not counted. Do we ever count women in the Torah? No. There is never a count in Torah that women were counted. Do we count the wives of Reuven, Shimon, Levi? They were all married because they had children, right? Do we count their wives? No. Do we count their daughters? No. So why in the world do we count Yocheved? Why is Yocheved the only woman counted? What makes her special? So you'll ask Dina. Really? Dina didn't start off as a woman. Rashi says she was going to be Yosef, and they were flipped. So the truth is, the only fully woman from birth counted is Yocheved.
Sarah wasn't counted?
According to some, and maybe the Rush says she was counted, but according to most Rishonim, she wasn't counted either. There is an opinion that Sarah was counted.
So it's whatever came out of Yaakov.
Yaakov's children. Okay. But presumably, Yocheved was not the only girl in the family. Right? I mean, I'm assuming they didn't just have boys. You know, I think you have a pretty good chance. Let's try it right now. You're going to flip a coin 10 times, okay? Call it 10. Tails, okay? Heads. There you go. It only took me twice, right? So usually when you have children, usually about 50% will be boys, about 50% will be girls. You would think that one of the Shvatim had a girl. Not every time. They didn't make a Shalom Zachar every single time they had a baby. So why is Yocheved the only one counted? The Pirkei de Rebbe Lezer says a different story. Who was counted? Who is the 70th? Not Yocheved. Hashem. The Pirkei de Rebbe Lezer says, "Uchshabo legvul Mitzrayim nesyachsu kol hazacharim." They counted all the men. Shishim v'sheish, v'Yosef v'shnei banav, harei shivim chasar echas, uchsiv b'shivim nefesh, yardu aveisecha Mitzrayima. But it says 70. Ma asa HaKadosh Baruch Hu nichnasi mo'em b'minyan. God said, count me in. V'alu l'misvar shivim l'kayim ha'shenemar anochi eiredim cha Mitzrayima. I'm going to go down with you to Mitzrayim. Now the truth is, when they came out of Mitzrayim, they counted them, and how many were they? 600,000, but minus one. So God says, Anochi Eiredim Mitzrayim, and Anochi v'Anochi Alcha Gam Aloi, I'm going to come out with you as well. And God was number 70, and He was number 600,000. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, this is the secret meaning of Uvichlalan. When you count Jews separately, one by one, If everyone's an individual and a person unto themselves, and we don't come together as one, then you only have 69, because God is not with us. If everyone is a specific individual, a befratan, if everyone is a prat, God's not with you. But uvechlalan, when we all come together, ba'achdus, then God says, I'm with you. That's the secret of the Gemara, uvechlalan atamoitzi shivim. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz like this. That's why Yocheved was needed. Because God is with us, but He's only with us when we're in the right place, and the right place is Israel. So when we come together and we're in Eretz Yisrael, God's with us. God ain't coming with us in Mitzrayim. So the moment we got to the border of Mitzrayim, we lost number 70. So Yocheved needed to be born at that split second. So the moment we lost number 70, we gained number 70. That's the secret of why Yocheved needed to be born at that precise moment, because that's when we lost Rebbeinu Shem's participation. So Hashem said, don't worry, I have it all set up. That's why Yocheved needed to be born at that particular moment. Look at number 9. Uvezet Tavin. With this we can understand Masha Amru Chazal, Befratan atamoitze samachtes, when you count them specifically, you have 69. Uvechlalan ayin. And when you incorporate them together, you have 70. V'lamakach. Ki bedavar nifrad ein hashchina shayra. By specifics, God does not reside. Ki kol kedusha hi ba'asar diyichuda. Kedusha is only where there's achdos. V'chein kishiyisol oisin ratzon hamakim. When the Jewish people do the will of God, V'Hashem shayra itam, and God resides with them. Ein l'soifram lahayrois al dvar preda. You can't count them, because counting represents separation and individuals. Kitzarch liyos biyechuda. We need to be in unity. This is what it means in the Medrash and the Zayar. The Shechina was number 70. And therefore, Bechlalan, when everyone is together in a klal, then the Shechina is number 70. But Bepratan, when you count them, and now you're looking at people as individuals, then they're 69. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, this is what it means. Yocheved was born bein hachaymos, meaning between Eretz Yisrael and Mitzrayim. Why? Why did Yocheved have to be born at that time? Because all 69 were born in Eretz Yisrael. Yocheved was the only one born on the border of Mitzrayim. The Inyan is, he said, this is an incredible thing I never realized. Ki misvar ayin haya misvar mechuven la'ayin sarim. There has to be 70. The 70 Jews, by the way, correspond to the 70 ministering angels of the world. Remember, we said that in the Dar Haflaga, God cast lots, and He gave to the 70 angels of the world the 70 nations, and God said, I'll take the 70 souls of the Jewish people. So there always have to be this core of the 70 Jews. Now the Shechina never comes down in Chutz Haaretz. So how do we daven in Chutz Haaretz? It's only like the Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz says, a semblance. But the Shechina is only in Eretz Yisrael. The Shechina, ein hashchina shayra ela be'Eretz Yisrael, like the Gemara says in Ma'id Katan, and the Zayar says, Tuv ha'aretz. So the Shechina was number 70, but that's only so long as we're in Eretz Yisrael. But once we got to Mitzrayim, the Shechina ceased, and then we're missing 70, and immediately Yocheved was born to make up the 70. Therefore, she cannot be born before, because if she would have been born before, there would have been 71. Therefore, she was born just in the right second. This is the first pshat of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz in the Yaros Davash, Chelek Aleph, Drush Beis, page Lamed Hey. Rabbi Yonasan continues. He says there's a pasuk in Shir HaShirim, Lesusasi b'rechvei faroi di misich rayasi. This is, Shir HaShirim is a love song between the bride and the groom being God, and the bride being Knesset Yisrael. So imagine if a groom says to the bride, you know what you're like to me, dear? You're like the horses, not regular horses, the horses of Paro's chariot. Wow, what beautiful words that the groom says to the bride. You know what you're like to me? You're like a horse. And the bride will say back, and for supper I'll be serving you hay. Right? But that's what it says in Shir HaShirim. You're like the horses in Paro's chariots. What does this mean, like the horses in Paro's chariots? Were the horses in Paro's chariots male horses or female horses? Susasi are female horses. Says the Medrash, Darash Reb Pinchas, Rechev Paroi al Sus Zachar. When Paroi rode on a male horse, Hashem appeared to him on a male horse. Like it says, Darachta Bayam Susecha, Rachav Paroi al Sus Nekeva. Hashem revealed himself on a female horse, Shenemra L'Susasi B'Richvei Paroi. Comes Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz. You ever wonder, I can't believe we never thought of this question. You should be kicking yourself. Why should you be kicking yourself? Because, you ever notice, the only female counted among the 70 Jews is Yocheved. What about all the wives of the Shvatim? What about all the granddaughters and the great-granddaughters? Why are none of them counted except for Yocheved? The 70 Jews correspond to the 70 what? Nations. The 70 angels. Are these angels male or female? You don't know how you're supposed to know. I never checked them out. Well, now we're telling you. They're all male. The angel of America is male. The angel of North Korea is male. The angel of Saudi Arabia, male. Syria, male. There's only one female angel, Mitzrayim. Therefore, if the 70 Jews are corresponding to the 70 angels, then they all have to be male, except for one, except for the individual who corresponds to Egypt. Which individual corresponds to Egypt? Yocheved. So Yocheved is the only female allowed entry into the 70 souls of the Jewish people, because the 70 souls of the Jewish people correspond to the 70 ministering angels, who are all male, with the exception of Egypt's ministering angel. Therefore, Yocheved...
How do we know that? The gender of the angels?
Yeah, Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz checked it out, and he reveals to us that the angels of the world are all male, except for the angel of Pharaoh, the angel of Egypt, and therefore Yocheved is the only woman allowed entry, and therefore she has to be born where? In Egypt, because she's Keneged Mitzrayim, therefore she has to be born not a moment before they get there. Therefore, who's going to be the one to overturn Egypt? The descendant of Yocheved. If Yocheved is the individual who's Keneged, the ministering angel of Egypt, therefore it has to be Yocheved's son who could take us out of Mitzrayim, because Yocheved is the koyach of extraction from Mitzrayim. Therefore Yocheved's son Moshe has to be, first of all, Yocheved is born the moment they get into Egypt. Therefore, more than that, Moshe grows up where? In Paro's house. Baby Moshe wakes up in the middle of the night, and Basi said, Tati, I'm too tired, you want to take care of him? And Paro is, putting Moshe back to sleep. He's paying for all of his formula. Paro is taking care of Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Because Yocheved through Moshe is the antidote to Mitzrayim. But Mitzrayim is a nekeva. Says the Yaros Tavash, Aval Inyan Lahaven. Lama Yocheved sheshlima minyan ha'ayin. Why does Yocheved complete the number 70? No dub in Mitzrayim Davka, she's born Davka Mitzrayim. Uv'chol yoytze chalatzav shal Yaakov, all the descendants of Yaakov, lo hoyse nekeva, rak Yocheved. V'di'ai Dina, you asked, right? No, be'emes hoyse gever. Dina was really a man, sheneschalef be'Yosef. The Gemara Bracha says she was switched with Yosef, right? Because when Dina was about to have her 7th son, Dina says, I have more sons, then Rachel won't even be like Bilhah and Zilpah. So Leah made an equation, and Dina was changed to a female. But Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky writes, Dina always maintained certain male characteristics. Vateitze Dina, she was a go-getter. On the other hand, Yosef, who started off as a nekeva, was Masalsel Basaroi. So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. So really, Dina was a gever. Avodah. Ki ayin nefesh hein neged shivim sarim shabim merkava. The 70 souls of Klal Yisrael corresponded to the 70 nations of the chariot. Shehein ayin lashon, the 70 languages. The negdam hein shivim nefesh l'beis Yaakov. V'da ki yesh malachim duchrim. There are male angels. V'yesh malachim nukvim. There are female angels. Oilamos toifafais. There's an expression in Navi referring to female angels. V'chol ayin sarim kulan duchrin. All the angels are male. So, Reb Dana wants to know, how do we know that? When you know, right? Chutz misari shel Mitzrayim shu nekeva. Except for the angel of Egypt. V'lakach ksiv bei. Ervas haaretz. What is Mitzrayim always called? What does Yosef say in number 15? Vayizkor Yosef es ha'chaloim literally says Ervas haaretz basem. You ever realize when did we ever use the expression Ervas haaretz except for by Mitzrayim? That's because you have to know who Mitzrayim is. Why is Mitzrayim malei zima? Why is Mitzrayim malei kishuf? Mechashefa lo yisachaya, not mechashef. Because that type of behavior is more common among nashim. The roiv kishafim benukva, bezeu she'amru b'medrash l'susasi b'rechvei paroi, that to Paroi, the angel of Mitzrayim appeared like a female horse. Ki sar shalai haya nekeva, ki kach inyan sar shalai nekeva. Okay. Therefore, v'neged sar halazeh hayu b'yoytzei chalotzav shel Yaakov b'minyan ayin gam kenekeva. Well, if the only sar that was in nekeva was the sar Mitzrayim, then the individual of the 70 souls of Yaakov that corresponded to that had to have been what? Had to have been a nekeva. V'hi Yocheved v'lachei mimeno yotza shenezgada b'beis Paroi. Therefore, Moshe grew up in Paro's house. Shehu sheni l'sar. Moshe was second in command to the Paroi himself. Ki hamelech merkava l'sar. So Moshe, who was sort of second in command to Paroi, was able to overcome Paroi. He was ben Yocheved. Therefore, she had to be born in Mitzrayim to subdue that sar. Therefore, Paroi's decree was always against who? The males, not the females. By him, it's v'habas techayon, because his sar protected the females. And therefore, by Makas B'choros, it says, even the Nekevos were smitten, because Hayois Hasar Nikra B'Shem B'char Nilke. How do we know that, meaning why were the females stricken in Mitzrayim? Because since the Sar of Mitzrayim was stricken, and the Sar was a female, all the females in Mitzrayim were stricken. Okay, let's move on a little bit further. Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz. The Gemara says in Brachos that when we're coming times of the Meraglim, Hashem told Moshe, we're going to destroy them, and Moshe said, no, you can't destroy them. People are going to say, Mi bilti yechoilas Hashem. God didn't have the yechoilas to take us out. So Gemara asks, what? Why did Moshe say about God that people are going to say he didn't have the yechoilas? It should say, Eino yachoil, not yechoilas. Why are we referring to God as a nekeva? Amar Rabbi Lazar, Amar Moshe, now the nations of the world are going to say, Tashash koichai kenekeva, that God's power was weak like a female. Ve'eno yachal lahatzo, and He's not able to save us. Amar Moshe, what do you mean? But they already saw the miracles in Mitzrayim. No. They're going to say that, against Paro you were able to stand up, but you can't stand up against the 31 kings of Canaan. Well, it says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, this is the meaning of the Gemara in Brachos. When Moshe said, I'm afraid that the Goyim are going to say, Mi bilti yechoilas, that means they're going to say that just like the Sar of Mitzrayim was chazak, but then it became weak like a nekeva, so too they're going to say that about the Sar of Klal Yisrael. Ulekach nischabtu l'ma'oid l'msar Torah l'Mitzrayim. That's why Hashem cannot give us the Torah in Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is a place of Tumah. And then Hashem was able to give us the Torah in the Midbar, when we got out of Mitzrayim. By the way, Mitzrayim was then completely subdued and destroyed. When did Mitzrayim regain their strength? When Shlomo married and took too many horses. Somehow the horses of Mitzrayim are connected to the regeneration of Mitzrayim. And when Shlomo took too many horses and married Bas Paroi, somehow this regenerated Mitzrayim. And Rabbi Yonasan says something very interesting, that how could the Rambam and the Arizal live in Mitzrayim? The Torah says, Lo yisosef lashem Mitzrayima. He says, this is not the place to explain how what we just said explains it. And I did search all the Svarim of Rabbi Yonasan, where does he explain it? I'm not sure. I did not find it. And this is the tragedy of Talmai HaMelech, Rabbi Yonasan says, who is the king of Mitzrayim, who wanted to translate the Torah. The Torah cannot be in Mitzrayim. Be it as it may. Says the Chidah in the Tzavrei Shalal, we go back to this week's Haftorah, And the Haftorah says, V'hinave alav, v'al Mitzrayim kula. Why is Mitzrayim referred to? B'lashon nekeva, says the Chida, based on Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, which is very interesting that the Chida quotes Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, because in his Shem HaGedolim, where he lists all the Svarim written before him, he omits Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz and all of his Svarim. But here, not only does he quote him, he bases his whole drasha. He says, if you look in Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshutz, that the Shivim Nefesh, Yotzei Yerach Yaakov, are connected to Ayin Sarim, and they're all male, except for the Sarah Mitzrayim, which is female. And he says, on the 5 lines from the end, V'al this is the Pshat in Yeshaya, why by Yomahu Yiyah Mitzrayim Kanashim, why we're comparing them to Nashim. And now we understand why the Navi uses the Lashon of Kula Lashon Akeva as referring to Mitzrayim. Wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.